Hi, welcome to season 2, first episode.
Woo! Hi, everybody, welcome back.
I'm Justin.
And I'm Matthew. And we're here to talk about.
COVID.
So, I'll get started.
Okay.
COVID has been garbage, let's be real. The reason actually that we stopped the videos was because I got really sick at the end of the year. Well, not the end of the year, but the end of the school year last year. In the beginning of June, I got really sick. I went to the hospital, got tested for COVID. I did not have COVID. Went back to the hospital, got tested again. I did not have COVID. Went back a third time, got tested. I didn't have COVID. Then I recovered and felt like I had a brain injury for a while. And I talked to my doctor friend, and she's like, "You totally had COVID," even though the test came back negative. All my symptoms and all the prolonged stuff was COVID. So it was really hard to focus and try to do anything extra like the videos. But now I'm feeling great. So
And we're back.
and we're back, back in the room, as it were. So COVID, how has it been influencing your teaching?
Well, I guess it's interesting because you were actually working in the classroom during the last 2 years with COVID,
With
and
children?
I actually have been outside of the classroom, not working with children with COVID, but I have been working with adults.
Teaching from home.
And so when that message hit in March 2020, I went straight to online. And at first that was so exciting because I got to be with you and we got to go for walks and do things and just survive. And nothing seemed to really change. But then it was September 2020 and that's when it just hit me. I'm like, I'm done working from home. And everything had to be online. And I actually stopped seeing people only through a screen. So I didn't even see like family or friends or anything like that. It was just you and I.
Just me.
And I was at home all day and it wasn't that fun. Even though I was trying to make it exciting online, but not realizing that the people behind that screen were also going through family things and going to school, also not seeing family. So that was really difficult to try to navigate through a screen, how to make it more normal.
Yeah, and so hard, like when you're going through it and you're like, oh, I'm barely making it, and then all the students are going through it, it's like they're going through a bunch of hard stuff,
Yeah.
and I don't have the extra stuff to take care of that extra hard stuff that they're going through. So it's this like
Yeah.
cycle of trauma and and no ability to cope really.
Yeah.
For me in the classroom, when we all went home in March in 2020, it was like, woo, paid time off, that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
But then when we went back in September, and then we were doing this kind of on and off thing, I was just like, okay, we're going to be in here with 3 and 4 year olds, and they're going to be masking, but not masking. Really, a 3-year-old mask is just
Yeah.
a COVID trap. Like it's this big moist thing that's in their nose and in their mouth, and they're sucking on it. So it's so disgusting. So yeah, it didn't feel safe, but I personally didn't feel unsafe because I felt I was immortal. I could probably beat COVID.
Yeah.
I'm young and strong and healthy, and then I got really sick and I felt differently. But yeah, it was just really very stressful. And everything that we did, everything that we were used to doing, you couldn't do because of COVID. Like, can I sing at my circle with my kids sitting 2 feet away from me? No, because I'm gonna project a whole bunch of COVID all over them.
Or books or fabric.
Yeah, well, we could always have books because we could spray them clean, but they didn't want us to have fabrics. They didn't want us to have shared water for water play, for sensory play or anything like that. So there were just all these new things that were taken away from us, and it made the classroom very hard, very echoey, and very, I don't know, just clinical. And then these sheets to fill out like how often
Yes.
you cleaned things, and did you do 3 steps of cleaning, and did you sanitize the door handles and the light switches and everything every single day? And it got to the point where it would have taken up a full-time job to do the paperwork for COVID,
Yeah.
on top of the stress of working during COVID, on top of the stress of dealing with children's trauma and their families' trauma for COVID. So it was a very emotionally taxing time, and that led to my sickness.
And I
So
don't think people talk about it enough what it's done, because really the the whole world was like, okay, you're going to go back to work
mm,
and we're not going to talk about COVID, but here are the rules that you have to have. And then it's like, okay, well, when am I going to catch up with what's really happening and how do I recognize my own feelings?
yeah.
It was like there was no time for that. It was just like the kids are there, go work for them. Or
Yeah,
go,
and then it's just we're all in this together, which really
yeah,
just means shut up and do the job.
yeah,
Honestly, nobody's ever we're all in this together when they're trying to help you.
yeah,
They're always saying we're all in this together, so stop complaining. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So that's just really hard. But more specifically in the classroom, working with COVID now that it's been a year
2 years.
2 years. Luckily, my school hasn't had any cases, as far as I know, so that's really good news. But one of the things that I'm noticing that's kind of like this ongoing problem with COVID is with the masks. So when I'm working with young children in the area that I'm in, a lot of the children and their families are learning English or bettering their English because it's not necessarily their first language. And I'm used to that, and I love that. Love explaining language and working with language and seeing that development because it develops really quickly. With children who have another language or with families. 3 or 4 months, and you have a child who before you're struggling to get a yes and a no, and now all of a sudden they're speaking in 3-word sentences, sort of thing, like explaining to me things that are not just repeated, sort of thing. So that's pretty great. But with COVID, there's a mask covering my mouth, so they can't see the way my lips move or where my tongue is placed on my teeth when I'm talking, and they can't pick it up. On top of that, the sound that I'm making is muffled, and my hearing's not the greatest, so the sound they're making is muffled. So, they're saying things like bath, and I'm hearing wet. You know what I mean? Like it's just such a difficult thing. And then I find that I'm trying to enunciate more clearly and slowly with eyebrows and stuff. And then it sounds like I'm yelling all the time. When I'm not yelling, I'm just trying to clearly speak. Oh, it's just exhausting. And then, so yeah, so that's one of the hardest things for me for teaching during COVID with young children is the masks and how it impedes the language development and language acquisition, really.
Right.
Hearing their peers if some peers do speak English.
I think for me, I was online for like 18 months, and so I was trying to come up with creative things that you would typically do inside your home, like cooking, cleaning, going for walks. All of that was factored into like assignments, so I made them assignments. But then coming back to campus after 18 months was nerve-wracking because I went from seeing a screen to seeing 22 people on top of other people in a campus that I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
And then trying to come up with like understanding the rules of desks have to be a certain way, masks have to be on, all this stuff. And then the rules keep piling up, but then nobody's really talking about COVID. It's just sort of like, follow these rules
And don't ask questions.
don't ask questions. And it's like, well, I do have questions, but they're not giving you time to process that. And you're still trying to do your job because you love what you do, but at the same time you can't because the world is not letting you really focus on that. So I think for me, talking about COVID has been helpful because we're saying things finally that we haven't said in 2 years.
Like what?
Like, for example, how hard it was for me mentally being at home and not talking to anybody, where I'm so used to being animated and charged by response from somebody. So when I worked with children, they would immediately give me a response that I needed, or if I'm working with adults, they immediately gave me a response so that I could be more like alive.
Yeah, like you're a performer.
I'm a performer.
Requiring the crowd to be invested.
Yes, I need the tips.
That's an important skill to have, I guess.
Yeah.
For a teacher of any sort, to be a performer. Yeah. When I was working, there were times in the class that we had to work online through the screen with 3 and 4-year-olds, which was again, just really frustrating. You know, you spend the first couple of times just getting used to turn on your microphone, turn off your microphone, turn on your microphone, turn off your microphone. And then once, you know, they get used to that, then you can start to get into some fun games.
Right.
A lot of show and tell during COVID. I found like
Yes.
it was like the bookends to every session. Okay, everybody go get something that you found since I last saw you, and you get a rock or a stick or a new toy that they got or a cupcake, and bring it to the screen and be like, oh, this is my, you know, this is my Andy Warhol, and he talks to me and tells me, you know, that things aren't the way they look or whatever. Um, and that was kind of the beginning of the session. Then you'd, you know, do some things, talk about things, play some games, and then you'd end with, now go get your favorite thing that is soft or whatever. But it was a lot of kind of like showing people stuff that you have in your house, showing children stuff that you have in your house,
Yeah.
and them showing you what they have in their house, so that it just felt like there was some interaction between you, because you can't, you know, you can't touch each other, you can't hug each
Yeah.
other, you can't, you know, be happy or sad with each other. I don't know, it's just, it was such a weird time, and teaching online was just really, I don't know, it took a real, you know, shift in the brain sort of thing.
And I think that goes into like when I hear people talking about excuses like I can't do that because of COVID. And there's two things about that. I mean, even now just saying it, I had one idea, but now I'm thinking of another thing. That the first thing is I can't have these certain toys out because I don't want to clean them all the time. So the excuse is I don't want to put that out because of COVID.
I think
And
the excuse is I can't put that
oh,
out because of
right.
COVID, but what you really mean is I don't
Yeah.
want to do all the extra work involved because of COVID.
And see, and then on the other side of that, what I'm just saying earlier, it's that excuse of COVID is just mentally, I have no more left in my body, and it's just cleaning just becomes more than a chore.
Yeah, yeah, I remember the whole water thing last year. You know, don't put out any water because it's shared
Or
water.
sand.
And then this year, I was just like, you know what? I'm putting out water. Shh, don't tell anybody. You know, and I found ways to do it. You know, a couple bins on the table and little eyedroppers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's like, listen, I'm to the point now where I'm putting out water. I've got some fabrics in the room again. I wash them appropriately. I clean them out every day. I mean, we clean out water every day anyway.
Yeah.
But it's like I need these things. I need children to experience texture and the mixing of colors. Like I put out water with different colors so they could mix them, and it was like this magical thing all of a sudden because I hadn't done it for like
Yeah.
a year, and it's like, whoa, you know, all the things that we didn't get to do last year really affected me. Like taking fabric and wrapping it around yourself and being a ghost or being a person
Singing.
singing. Oh my gosh, singing. Anyway, yeah, so just the different things that we can put out this year. And the other thing, we had to wrap up our carpets
Right.
in like tarps so that it could be washed and sprayed
Yeah.
daily with the disinfectant. And I'm like, okay, the tarp is coming off and we're gonna sit on a soft carpet again because that's just insanity. But yeah, when you think about all the little changes you made to make your classroom COVID safe,
Yeah.
and how it's just like, no, these things don't work long term. These are definitely short term
Yes.
things for working with children. You know, I mean, you can definitely work in a space like a hospital and have everything super, super clean all the time. But when you're working with children, you need to have you need to have a soft space. You just need
Yeah.
to, you know, and um, anyway, and you can't go and buy a whole bunch of new inflatable soft space stuff every, you know, we don't know how long it's going to last. You're going to invest all this money.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like it just seems really hard, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It is, and it still is hard. But
Yeah.
it's choices that you need to start making and ask yourself, what is it that I want to get out of this job, or
Yep.
what I want to do? Because I'm not saying that COVID is not real, but it's got to the point where I stopped living because I was afraid that COVID was going to get me and then I was going to get sick and then I
And
don't
make
know,
other people
and
sick.
make other people sick, especially because there's vulnerable people in our lives that have various
Conditions.
conditions. So it was scary. That's the whole thing. It was scary.
Yeah.
And so we're here just to talk about, you know, that it is there, and I think that people should start talking about it.
Talk about it. Anyway, we'll be back in just a couple of seconds. And we're back. So now we're just going to discuss a couple of things that got us through or that improved even, over the COVID
Yeah.
mess.
Just
So
personally or just in our teaching?
Well, in our work, I mean, how it applies to our audience, I guess, is the best way to go.
So for me, I found that I learned technology a lot quicker and I'm able to navigate a lot more. And I mean, we started making these YouTube shows because of it.
It's true.
I learned how to edit stuff.
It's true.
I learned how to still be interactive online with a large group of people. So, I mean, I've done painting online. We've done working with Play-Doh because I'm working at NSCC and I'm working in a faculty in early childhood. And so it was trying to find things that we would have done in small groups. And I learned how to do breakout rooms and then they could talk in small groups that way. And we did like cameras on and we all cooked something where we were seeing our homes and learned more about us individually, even though we were online. So I think that we were able to be more connected to each other than we would have before.
Yeah.
That way.
Yeah. For me, one of the things that really got me through the whole pandemic thing and COVID was working outside. So, I start my day every day with a walk in the morning, and my walk is about an hour long or an hour and a half outside. Not just a straight walk, but a walk somewhere and play and then come back sort of thing. And that really buffered the worst of it for me because outside we don't have to spray things. We can pick up the pine cones and find a stick, you know what I mean? And is that a stick that somebody else touched? Who knows? But I can't possibly clean it, so I don't really have to worry about that. And going for hikes around the neighborhood and seeing what people are doing to their houses, because a lot of people did a lot of stuff to their yards and their houses over COVID. So it's just great to get out with the children and see how their world is changing and in positive ways. So yeah, outside was really the best part for me, getting out and but it always is, even without COVID. But I found that it was really stopping me from getting even more bogged down by everything that people had to deal with.
And I think just a little add on to that, we had to do sort of a balance on our personal lives where Matthew and I would go for a walk early in the morning, like at 6 a.m. before we even started work, just to like get the air in and see things outside. Even when it was like freezing cold, we still did it because it was a routine and it helped us just talk to each other and anything that was bothering us, just talking about it and then getting ready for the day because, that helped.
Yeah, and then Justin went back to work in Dartmouth, and now I have to drive for an hour every morning before going to my work. So
Right.
the walks have not been happening lately, but hopefully soon we can get back on the same schedule and get our walk in early in the day because I find at the end of the day I'm a little bit
Tired.
toast in the brain. One of the things that you were talking about that was the benefit for me is kind of like self-worth, the worth of time and prioritizing.
Right.
Because during COVID, a lot of people asked me to do workshops for them. And I was like, listen, I do not want to do these workshops. I don't want to use my time. I know I'm going to be depressed. So if you're going to get me to do a workshop, I'm going to give you some ridiculous number to pay me. And we'll see how bad you want me. And they're like, sure, we'll pay. And I'm like, oh my God, who knew I was worth that much money? Who knew my time was worth that much? Yeah. So it was really good for me personally to reevaluate my own time, the worth of my time, the value of my time. Yeah, and you as well, right? Like your fees for doing workshops and stuff went up. We invited a couple of friends to do workshops with us and got them to get their fees up too because people want people to do workshops and stuff. So you gotta charge your worth. and the money's out there
Yeah,
if you're willing to ask
and
for it.
also, you know, hobbies and things like that have started to come back, and people start to find things that they. I mean, we made bread,
Mm.
tons of bread, and cinnamon rolls, maybe
Mm-hmm.
more than once. I've got back into painting.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but what does that have to do with our
Well,
video?
because we just talked about how, excuse me, we just talked about how, well, how has COVID benefited us? And so
Oh,
that's where he forgets.
I'm clearly not paying attention.
I know, you're just talking out loud.
Yeah. Actually, when we were making bread and cinnamon rolls, I even made videos for my classroom for the children, showing them how I made cinnamon rolls, just to have something, for them to watch when it wasn't live interaction. I did some recorded songs, classroom songs that we played, so they could play it as often as they want and really annoy their parents. And little things. Oh my God, we went on a walk one day because we would always go on walks with the children. So I went on a walk and Justin was filming me. And I was, doing my talk. I'm like, ooh, look, I found these leaves. They're starting to turn, blah, blah, blah. And oh, look at this mushroom. I wonder what kind of mushroom it is. Just the way that I would if I was going on a walk with the children. And then I got up on this big rock to be like, ooh, it's really high up here, whatever. And then Justin turned off the camera and I slipped off the rock and fell and rolled and landed on my face. And Justin did not laugh at me because he's so kind and loves me. But I was just laying there laughing at how ridiculous it was, and I wish that it was recorded because we could show everybody how silly I am sometimes. Anyway, but yeah, just making videos like that was something that I got new skills out of. I developed
Yeah.
the skills of making videos,
And I was starting to make like silly TikTok videos just because I was getting back into making art.
yeah,
And I thought video recording and TikTok was only like, what, 30 seconds to a minute long. And I thought I can start with that first and just try to get some creative things out before I go back to painting again.
yeah, and it really influenced your teaching too because you had some assignments where the students could make a TikTok as kind of their assignment.
That's right.
Yeah, so pretty cool things that we got to
Yeah.
develop over COVID. Anyway, we'd like to hear from you. What have you developed over COVID? What was your saving grace? Or maybe you want to talk on the dark side and tell us how horrible it's been and what's the hardest thing or how are you coping with that really difficult time?
So leave us a comment.
Leave us a comment, send us an email, like and subscribe, and we'll see you at our next video.
And we're listening.